Chair of SDK.
I am Wright Archer, Division Engineer with Division 7 with the NCDOT. I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina, so I know a little bit about Saxapahaw. I was contacted, I guess, a couple years ago to come look at the area. Obviously, it's a unique community. Our primary goal is obviously traffic safety in all modes. That's bike, ped, and vehicular. I guess when I was first contacted, we're talking about signalizations out here on the main street, and at that time, talking to Mr. Jordan and Elizabeth, it just seemed like the signal just didn't fit the motif for the area, the signal does not solve everything. Sometimes it makes matters quite a bit worse. So that's when we started looking at the roundabout concepts, and at the time, we were looking at the ideal scenario roundabout, which came in about $7 or $8 million. And obviously funding is everything for us. So we've looked at several different versions. We're looking now at and I've got some drawings that when we break out, I'll be glad to show you, kind of walk you through the different designs that we've gone through to kind of get where I think we are today. But we're still looking at a funding situation. We're looking at actually installing one of these smaller modular composite roundabouts in another section of Alamance County. Ran into supply chain problems with that and some other things. So that put us about a year behind. But we really wanted to see how that roundabout design worked, especially with truck traffic, because that does allow the mobility of traffic as well as the school traffic to move through. Does slow the traffic down somewhat. But I think the key factor there is that the trucks don't stop, so you don't get that going all the way down to the first gear and starting off. So you do keep some mobility going or some movement going. So, but here to answer questions. Normally my wife comes. She couldn't come tonight. She loves the Eddie, the restaurant down there. So we've been here several times. So, but anyway, it's a great community, and I'm glad to be here. And certainly want to answer any questions you have.
Awesome, thank you, Ray. Would you mind passing back to Elizabeth? We'll call that the Hobbit David. So, Elizabeth, I know you've been involved in this for a while, and just from your perspective, particularly over the past 2 years, what progress would you say has been made with walkability and traffic safety?
Well, okay, progress that has been made. I'm going to go back just a little bit. And first, I do want to point out that we do have one of our Alamance County Commissioners with us, Steve Carter. Very pleased that Mr. Jordan reached out to him. He's also in charge of traffic, I believe, for the whole county. So that's another great advocate for us here. So basically 2 years ago, I just realized there's a ton of traffic coming through, and it didn't used to be like that. So I had reached out to a couple of people, and we sort of brainstormed, got in touch with some more people, and they told me, you have to have a state representative. So I got in touch with a couple of neighbors, and we did our own informal traffic count ourselves. We actually counted trucks and cars, and then my husband, who was working on a house a couple of doors down, took videos. And so then I sent all of this to our state rep, who is Dennis Ravel. He came out here. This is about 2 years ago. And he looked, and he was very helpful. He said, wow, yeah, you have a problem here. And he suggested we do a petition. So at that point, we collected over 200 signatures and lots of stories. And then he was the one that reached out to DOT and to Wright Archer, and that's when we first started having our meeting. And mind you, this is right during COVID. So all of a sudden we're having Zoom meetings, and I had reached out to some of the business members, and that's where it sort of began. And then bit by bit, we had more meetings, and because, I think at first I somehow thought, well, all we have to do is put a no through truck sign and that'll solve the problem. Not understanding that's not how it works. There are actual rules, and DOT has all the information. So we kept going with the meetings and got more people involved, like Mr. Jordan started coming, Heather, Lagarde also, just a lot of people in the community attended. And that is when Hawbridge also, because it was being built at that time, So Catherine came on board as both a member of the community and also because at that time she was on the board of Hawbridge. So what was happening was we were having these meetings, but it was just a certain group of people talking about ideas and generating a lot of interest. And then, as often happens, about a year ago, I was on another community group concerning water. And we had a lot to do with the government. In that case, it was the USDA. And so all of my energies kind of, they went by the wayside. And we all, you know, as happens with groups, we didn't meet, we didn't get together. And finally, when all the water stuff was done, and that was good, I was like, whoa, we've got to start getting this back up. And in the meantime, there was another group that was meeting. And so that's kind of where we are right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Andrew, I know we had a chance to talk on the phone a week or so ago, and you know, you had a lot of really cool data and insight from your position, but in terms of the progress that's been made over the past 2 years, what have you noticed?
Well, the progress that we've made, we're building trails everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you build trails, they will come. So the numbers are going to increase. The numbers are, I actually had to call Nolan 3 times and say, are you sure these numbers are right? Because I do not want to get up and say that there are 88,000 visitors in a year at Saxapahaw Island. I mean, that's 240 people a day. It's incredible. And you increase the numbers, the number of pedestrians. A pedestrian is, every 81 seconds, a pedestrian is killed nationally. From starting with your folks who are older, my age and older, and then it moves down to children, and then we move into males. So older adults are pedestrians that are killed, children, and for some reason males, probably because they're willing to get out on the highway and walk. But as we increase these numbers by building trails, building communities like you have built here, an incredible community, and increase the numbers, we need to slow the traffic down so that we don't experience that risk. So the progress that we've made, we have built it, they're coming, but the infrastructure with the roads and being able to slow the traffic and getting pedestrian walkways, I think we might be a little bit behind with that. And hopefully these sessions will bring us up to date with that.
Cool. Thank you. Hey, Catherine.
Hey.
So we spoke earlier too, when we were kind of getting ready for this. You have a pretty unique perspective sitting on the board at Hawbridge. Over the past few years, or even looking at some of the current challenges, what has your experience kind of been like in terms of finding walkability strategies with respect, or traffic strategies with respect to the school?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. So, as most of you know, the way that we move in this community has significantly changed in the past 10 months with the addition of the Hawbridge Upper School, and I want to thank Lynn and Jennifer and the leadership here for letting us use this space tonight. We really appreciate it. I think it's one of the positives has been that I see looking out over this crowd tonight, so many parents of Hawbridge folks as well as BJ and SVK parents as well, so that's really encouraging. I think we've had a few scares. I can't speak specifically to the school, but I know there's been a few scares in regards to the safety of the amount of traffic coming through. When we were building the upper school, we were able to have the additional sidewalk put in. Obviously, that's not enough. We're going to be going from 320 kids at Hawbridge. Next year will be 620 kids, so almost doubling that. So it's really encouraging to see so many faces here tonight, and just to get this momentum going. I think just the amount of numbers is really going to make a difference and seeing a change here in Saxapahaw.
That's awesome. So like anecdotally and statistically, we're seeing this continued trend for growth. And right, in terms of, you gave a lot of really amazing examples earlier, but in terms of like implementing these, like what are the challenges that we're looking at? How can we become more involved? What are some paths that we can start to kind of focus on to move some of these forward?
I think this is the main focus right here is community involvement. And that's something that me and Stephen Robinson's here also from the department. But this is where we hear the concerns. Again, we have a bunch of towns and municipalities within our division, and we're not privy to, to all the idiosyncrasies that we have. But coming here, I know from 2019 was the first traffic study we did, and then we conducted one in 2021 and 2023. So I've got the data here that shows traffic from 2021 to 23 has doubled. Truck traffic has gone up significantly. So that's, I will say speeds have actually, the average speed, the average running speed, and this is based on our data, was 35 miles an hour to 36 miles an hour back in 21, and that speed's dropped probably because volumes have gone up and slowed down a little bit. And I mean, dropped a little, 34 to 33 miles an hour. So that's kind of indicative of what we're seeing, but it does echo what you're saying. Sorry, it does echo what you're saying, that the growth, and that's pretty much what we're seeing throughout the division with residential growth, economic growth, industrial, and everything else. But the challenges we have are, and I'll say this: our DOT wheels move so slow to develop a project after the STIP law went in, which is our strategic transportation plan. When that law went into effect, basically all control goes out of the division. Now it's an MPO, and that's where Stephen is here to answer questions of how do we actually get those projects into the MPO, into the streamline to get those projects funded. And that's kind of where we're at now. I mean, we can look at a $7 million roundabout or try to come in with something that's kind of a stopgap measure to fix what we think we have. Traffic calming, I guess, is kind of what we're looking at. A little more pedestrian friendly. I think that if you look at pedestrian car hits, around 15 miles an hour is kind of the survivability number, and every 5 miles an hour over that, the chance of a fatality is exponentially increased. So you can see pretty quickly, the car pedestrian contacts is obviously not what we want. So that's something to look at. But those are the challenges: is really getting the funding, getting through the permitting, the environmental documents, and things like that.
Cool. One more question for you too. I want to tap into your engineering mind. Wave a magic wand, no budgets, no approvals needed. What does a perfect mitigation strategy look like? Like, what could we aspire to?
Well, that's we come in with a planning document. We've got the data. We know what we need. We've got the design pretty much. But then we go through the permitting process, which that can be streamlined. Right-of-way acquisition depends on how much the impacts are, that type of thing. So you kind of go through those preliminary stages. And then the fun part is the construction, and then the final product. So,
thank you.
And that's the perfect world.
Yeah. Awesome. And we'll pass it back to Elizabeth. I want to keep us on schedule. What have you seen from the community, and how do you think citizens can become more involved?
I think that there's a big interest, and I think one of the things that's difficult for us out here is we are unincorporated. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. However, we have a really good, strong community of people who are willing to be part of this. And so I think that while we're waiting for sort of the perfect, well, maybe not the perfect, but the solution of roundabouts, I mean, there are other things I think that we can do, and that's one of the reasons to meet, is because a lot of us have like ideas that I think could help sort of just think in terms of traffic calming. But it takes a lot of people being open-minded and meeting and just coming up with different solutions. So I mean, I'm really happy about the fact that we have important people here who are decision makers, but we have regular people here who have really good ideas that are doable. So that's my outlook. And I love going from that one idea, whatever, 2.5, 3 years ago, and looking at for me personally, this is amazing to see all of you people that have showed up. Really, it's fabulous.
Awesome, thank you. Any other thoughts from the panel? Just trying to keep our meeting on agenda here.
I just wanted to share that a couple things. So I think either this morning, I'm getting my days mixed up, or last night, another committee member shared that the B. Everett Jordan Elementary School is sorry that they couldn't be here tonight, and that they're really wanting to stay informed and plugged in, which I think is great. There's a conversation with their principal and their SRO, so that's really good to have all forces behind this. And then if I could, I spoke to the director at Saxapahaw Village Kids, and she couldn't be here either tonight for an art show, and she had a few words to share, if that's okay. I know I'm going off the script, Brandon.
No, let's do it.
I'll make it quick. So this is from Renee Lynn. She's been the director of the Saxapahaw Village Kids preschool for 10 years. And she just shared that I've had the pleasure of witnessing our community grow in many ways and have been excited to welcome new faces to our beautiful space. Our preschool works to employ an emergent, place-based, community-oriented curriculum. There's ample research documenting the benefits of allowing learning to take place in the natural community in early childhood. Some of those include fostering that sense of curiosity that will inspire real-world explorations throughout life, creating real and meaningful connections within the child's home community, increase student engagement, deepen understanding of concepts, and develop a sense of place through geographical experiences that help lay the social-emotional foundation that is essential throughout adulthood. In our efforts to support this learning model, we frequently take our young 3 to 5-year-old students into our surrounding village. Sometimes we explore trails on the island, play at our beloved fishy park, visit local businesses, meet local professionals who can teach us all about their trade, and so much more. With our littlest community members in tow, we walk the village learning all that we can about where we live, and of course the safety of our students is always paramount. Increased through traffic in the village adds an undue burden to our program and increases safety concerns for our young learners, making these whimsical village strolls much more challenging. Imagine what it feels like to walk across a relatively narrow bridge with multiple transfer trucks speeding around the sharp curve headed towards you. Now imagine that feeling through the eyes and minds of a 4-year-old. I've seen that fear in the eyes of my students, and with increased traffic, it has been necessary to increase safety protocols tenfold, hindering our journey and only allowing us to walk when it is safe to do so. Our students deserve the opportunity to experience their village in meaningful ways, and they deserve to feel safe and secure in those explorations. I'm appreciative of the work this committee is doing to make our community safer for us all, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share how this impacts our school and our students.
Wow, what a great perspective, and thank you for jumping in and sharing that as well.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
I was just going to thank everybody for coming out. I think our first meeting, we had maybe six or seven attendees, so it's great to see the community come out. And just want to thank everybody and look forward to answering some questions one-on-one.
Excellent. Final thoughts before we move into table talk, and Megan, would you mind advancing that slide for me? Very good. Well, if we could just get a quick round of applause for our panelists. Thank you guys so much. All right, and now we're going to move into table talk, and we love table talk because it's a time where we can have all the conversations amongst the group. So, looking around, looks like we could probably do maybe 4 or 5 groups. And the whole idea here is if you have an idea or a suggestion or a question or a curiosity about how we could help improve walkability, or an idea to help move our goals forward, or a discussion that you'd like to have around that subject, you can just raise your hand, and from there you can have a group of folks come and join you. So we're looking for a handful of volunteers. Elizabeth, I think you had one idea that you wanted to talk about, or? Sure. Yeah?
Yeah. Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So one of my ideas was that, and I've seen this in Davidson here in North Carolina, and that is with the pedestrian walkways, they have put like these buckets, and they have sort of flags so that when you're at the pedestrian walkway, you're holding this up, a flag that you walk across, so it's very visible to everybody. And I just thought that might be an interesting thing to try and have here in Saxapahaw. So that's...
So pedestrian walkways, with Elizabeth, sorry. Who else has an idea in the crowd specifically on the floor up here?
I've got some designs to look.
We got some
Anybody have
designs
questions,
with
kind of
Roy?
See where we started, where we're at, and whatnot. So.
Cool, so we'll have Roy host one?
I'd like to talk about trying to get sidewalks of some kind on most of the major walkways,
Sidewalk discussions.
especially where the new trail is going across the river around Nocapay.
Okay, and your name?
My name is Mel Hanson Holloway.
Mel Hanson Holloway. So raise your hand, Mel, so everybody over there can see you. We're going to talk about sidewalks there, and I think we have room and space for probably 2 more conversations. Any other ideas?
I got 3.
Okay.
And this would be more than walkways in terms of traffic problems. With the school, I think you, on the outer edge, going towards our booster station, turn lane going. And that way it alleviates the backup traffic one way. The other way is the school, quote unquote, yeah, we let them have all their lane. But go ahead on the private drive, make that into a public road, and then your students, the traffic can be off the main road.
All right.
And the third is the big, which DOT won't think, and would solve 99% of the problems, but it's a big undertaking. A bypass. Right now, I'm going to say is, the one bridge is the only bridge between 87 and 54. And the only, no matter what we do in the middle of Saxapahaw, it's still in the middle of Saxapahaw. And in the growth that's going on right now, I'm going to say, you probably miss off 3 or 4 landowners. But the truck traffic is the majority of it because of the new our warehouses and everything. So all the big transfer trucks, when they're building more distribution centers, are coming through this way to bypass.
Did you want to host a conversation on that?
Well, I'm just saying that's my biggest idea, and I don't understand turn
Let's take that idea and do a conversation. So if we want to carry on there, we have one more over here.
I'd be interested in having this conversation, but before having it, knowing if there's a obvious reason it's been shut down today, which is that a roundabout sounds like a fantastic idea, if not quite expensive and just an architectural undertaking. But to that point, around there being few opportunities to really divert traffic around Saxapahaw, have we discussed speed humps? Because that seems like a much lower bar of installation and cost that, if put in, would dramatically reduce the speed and increase the walkability and safety for our small people that navigate this entire community on a daily basis. So I'm not understanding why that's not a part of the conversation, because it seems very practical.
Did you want to carry a discussion on the speed bumps?
Speed bumps.
All right, speed bump discussion over here. So we have sidewalks, speed bumps, and then Elizabeth, what was your idea, Colby?
Oh, it was also with pedestrian walkways, how to jazz them up so people will notice.
Jazzing up pedestrian walkways, and then in the back we're going to talk about turn lanes and how to mitigate warehouse traffic. So let's take 15 minutes and kind of get into groups, and also Wright Archer too, as well as talking about his plans. We're going to get with the groups, talk ideas. We'll then adjourn the groups, and we'll come back and present our ideas quickly at the end. Thank you.
Good job.
All right, it looks like we're all having some really productive conversations, but I think it's really important that we get the opportunity to share our ideas. So what I'll do is I'll walk around to the groups once we've had a chance to kind of wrap up our discussions. We can just kind of take the mic to the floor. that correct? I want to make sure everybody. Hey guys, real quick, let's start to wrap up the discussion so we can bring it all back to the group and we can share all of our ideas together and start talking about what we can do to make a difference and take some action. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk around to each group, and each group needs to select a spokesperson. And the idea, as the spokesperson, what we can do is we can share, did you get what you wanted to out of your discussion? And if you've developed any actionable next steps and how we want to move forward from there.
Maybe some mom voice.
We're going to get the mom voice involved.
Can everyone please take their seats? Thank you.
Thank you. So fair. All right, as everybody's taking their seats, I think we can walk around and we'll start with Mel and the sidewalk group. Who from your group wants to be the, okay, cool. So we're just thinking about what do we get out of the conversation, what are some ideas for next steps if there are any. Yeah. I love the, got that too. I love the enthusiasm. I think everybody's having some very passionate discussions.
We'll start ours.
Okay. Ooh. There's a button over there. All right, and remind me this group's focus again was speed bumps. Okay.
So we were the speed bump or speed table group that were interested in finding out really what the barriers are. I think we all generally agreed that it would be a good idea, and we imagine much cheaper than a roundabout. So we were able to speak to the other DOT gentleman that was here, Stephen, who had a lot of great advice, which was first of all for us to check with the chief engineer for DOT, whose name Chuck Edwards, to determine if there had been any conversations about this to date, and if so, what were the barriers or what was prohibiting this conversation from moving forward. And then beyond that, we were instructed or given some advice about how to move this conversation forward. It sounds really feasible, which is that if we had a group of interested parties that were able to form an entity, then we could engage with a DOT-approved engineering firm, price to be determined, of course, and we could do community fundraising to address that. But we could then have that firm do an assessment of our community to determine the feasibility of implementing speed tables or speed bumps and to determine what barriers there might be. And then if they found that to be favorable, then we could present that to DOT for implementation. The only real kind of concerns or barriers that were immediately identified in our conversation is that maintenance of them can be a bit of a problem because there's very little budget at DOT to do that. But again, that is something that we could potentially solve locally through community efforts and community fundraising if it were important to us, and if implementation of that would be feasible for our community. Does that?
That was amazing. I heard a lot of next steps and actions in there, so we should, if it wasn't recorded, we should definitely sync up and get all those jotted down at the end. I love it.
Well, to that point, if there's any kind of, I was going to say to that point, if there's any kind of document, I'm happy to contribute that, happy to take the lead on this group on that, and to start this communications in whatever way I can do that.
Awesome. I really appreciate that.
Can we comment and add to their comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody in our group had the idea that the
And did you, were you the leader of the group, or did you want to add more? No? Carter, was that yours? Okay. Well, yeah, would love to hear what you guys got out of the conversation. Were there any other insights that you wanted to share, actions and next steps?
That was the important one to me. The crosswalks are the speed.
Yeah, I actually part of the example. Last year, I went to Rome board, and they actually had the same problem in downtown, where people were following the speed limits. So what they did, so last year I visited Rome, Georgia. Their downtown had the same problem with people not following the rules about crosswalks and speed limits, and they implemented the speed table as part of the crosswalks. Very well implemented. I saw no problems with that the whole time. I was down there for 3 days. Everybody obeyed the rules. There were very clear signs. You did not have to wait as a pedestrian. You wanted to walk out anytime you wanted to. Didn't matter. You go. And they were also accommodating for wheelchairs, walkers, the whole setup. Very well implemented. Done in the high traffic areas in downtown, and then you had your normal crosswalk the rest of the downtown area. Worked out really well. I enjoyed it. And I think it'll work right here because we have pretty much 3 designated areas where we can implement things. And we'll slow everybody down.
Thank you so much. Great idea. And then Mel's group. Carter, this was your group? I don't want to. Okay. And then this started as the sidewalk group. What'd you guys come up with?
Well, I'll tell you, we talked about a lot of ideas. It was all about sidewalks. And just these are just ideas, so don't get too excited here. Yeah, because we got to take these ideas and maybe do something with them, or maybe not. Landowners can volunteer their front right-of-way property near the road for a path, at least a path, to get started. And that also resulted in a discussion about, well, the path's good for some people, but if you've got a stroller, it's not so good to be just a rough path, preferably something smooth, cement, asphalt, I don't know, something, an improved path would be needed. And generally there was discussions after that about where these sidewalks would have to run. Obviously, at the best it would be like 87 to Austin Quarter and maybe a Saxapahaw to Saxapahaw up to Terrace State. This is about it. And we need to, no matter what, there needs to be a wider right-of-way. So maybe the DOT could look at how to make right-of-ways a little bit wider. A few points that were brought up. There's a creek that runs past the Hogwarts School over here. It's just a culvert under the road, but the folks from the Haw Village can't walk down because there's no right-of-way other than walking in the road. So that was a good point. And that could also be a bridge, so possibly maybe a bridge parallel to the road to cross the creek that's just over here. And then the other one is a pedestrian bridge over the Haw River. And this would be an architectural point of interest. And it would be something, and tying all this into the trail system, maybe there's funding money through that, but a nice pedestrian bridge, a place where people can hang out, wide enough for people to walk, and maybe even bikes to cross, strollers. Think about people moving from the island and back, going to the playground there and exploring that. Anyways, I think those are the main things that we brought up, and maybe the sidewalks could be part of the trail system in some spots for funding. And I guess the ditches are a big problem too. There's ditches along Church Street that prevent people from walking along the road other than being in the road. So let's cover up those ditches, everybody. And that's all I have.
Excellent, thank you. Those are great ideas.
This was an offshoot idea that Harry and I talked about, because Elizabeth had mentioned it before. An easy win maybe easy-ish would be even just planting. How do we use plants and the landscape and what we're growing to signal this is a residential community to slow down? It's a way to consider, so that's something I would love to continue the conversation and see what ideas we can come up with from there. So, there's one other idea.
Thank you.
And we had another idea in our group, which I think people heard before, about building an alternative bridge, and I think that's a really important one. So I don't know, can you like summarize, because he made a map for us.
Okay.
But I can't really summarize it because I don't know the area well enough, having just moved here a year ago. So can you just summarize again?
The true. I don't know. No. Now, I'm not my dad. He trips over to get to the microphone. But truly the answer to all the traffic problems is to get away around our congestion bottleneck. And as I was saying before, in the near future, the way the growth is happening here, no matter what we do, instead of doubling, we're going to double again and again. And it's just not much there. I'm just saying the state needs to start the plans now to figure out the way around the one bridge over the river. And that's just where I'm going with it. And right now, if you could figure it out and get it at least sort of looked at, it might, like I said, once the ball starts rolling, it might creep for a while, but hopefully it will hit the downhill slope. And yes, I agree with all the other things, sidewalks, Dad will attest, we will give you whatever we need. And if you do quick approval, I'd have a sidewalk between the bills there on the, I call it the dirt path. But it's so close to the road, and if we do it, then we start getting into liability issues too. You know? So that's where, but I would go ahead and, if y'all would approve what is done, I'll put a sidewalk ourselves and pay for it.
But he does have an actual plan. Like, he has not a design of where potentially. So that's what we.
But
That sounds amazing. Sounds pretty amazing. Right?
I just shared our plans, kind of where we began a few years ago with a couple roundabouts and $7-8 million that it would cost, and then we had another rendition which was about $800,000, and that was in last year's money, so that's probably gone up 25-30%. And then now where we're at with the what we call the modular mini roundabout, we're looking at about $200,000. The idea is to go ahead and get something done while we're waiting on the Cadillac version. So that's something we're trying to move forward. We do have a section, like I said earlier, in Alamance County that we're going to try one of these modular composite roundabouts. There was some supply chain issues with resins and things like that for the manufacturer, so that was delayed. So we're about a year behind where we want to be getting that one installed. So as soon as we can get that in, hopefully this summer, then get that a little bit of a test. And then we can look at coming down here, because it's not very invasive. There's no new road pavement that we need to put in. It's just basically restriping and things like that. So it goes down like a Lego block set. So that's where it's pretty neat, new technology. So, and I have these. And if anybody wants to see these, kind of where we started, where we are, I'll be glad to just sit around and show these.
Awesome, thank you. It's definitely exciting stuff too. And Elizabeth, I know you had a group. Did you have a leader, or are you the leader? Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm a leader. So we just talked about a couple of things with the crosswalks that are already present, and they really need to be repainted. Where is Mr. Robinson?
Yeah.
Our pedestrian walkways really need to be repainted. Is there a plan for that?
There are a few that are associated with the schools that are punch list items for the completion of that. Now, I don't know if the ones that you're referencing are associated with that work, but I can reach out to our, and I've got a part that if you could send me the and I can get that for our traffic.
Okay. So that was,
You're not here yet.
oh,
Yes, I believe from what we were provided from our district office, there's still a couple crosswalks that the developer, the construction company that did the roadway construction improvements are, I believe, some punch list items, or they still have to freshen up some crosswalks. But the ones that were just referenced, I'm not sure if those are the ones that she was referencing. So I said, I can give a business card, and if you can send the locations, I can get them out to our division traffic department for review.
basically there's sort of, I think, four, anyway, we have some that are not related to the school and some that are, they're all in terrible, really bad condition.
By the bridge and the mill to go to Mapleton area.
Sure, and I'll have to take a look and see, because some of the thermoplastic pavement markings, they are put down after the roads are resurfaced. And when you come back and try to put thermoplastic on top of existing and kind of cracked thermoplastic, it doesn't hold on and it doesn't bond and it breaks off. So I'm not sure what kind of interim method that they could use in between the resurfacing, but like I said, we can look into that, like when it would be resurfaced and if it's on a plan, based off of which direction, if they're associated with the school, or if it's something that we can do under a resurfacing activity in the near future.
Elizabeth, did you want to come up to the front? I just noticed everybody's heads cranked around. I'm just trying to make it a little more comfortable physically for everybody.
So the other thing we had talked about was the flashing lights that they have, like in Chapel Hill at the crosswalks where you push a button and then there's there's these flashing lights. So you push a button and then the lights flash and the traffic knows to stop, and so that perhaps we could do. The other thing too is the gentleman mentioned that there are signs. It's state law is that cars and trucks have to stop if you're in a pedestrian walkway, and we should probably get those signs put up by our crosswalks. And then we also talked about not just the little flag system, but also getting perhaps even 2 more crosswalks. So, because now we're thinking about the camping area, we've noticed that now people are coming to camp and then they want to cross the road to come over to stuff that's happening here Saturdays in Saxapahaw or a concert or whatever, and you don't know where to cross, and it's super dangerous because they are on the wrong side of the road. So we were thinking maybe a crosswalk there from Morris Chapel Cemetery across. So that was another idea we had. Okay, some of our Morris Chapel people are enthusiastic about that idea. And that was kind of what I had. There was a lady over here, I thought, who had her hand up.
I was going to say, it does say anything about the back. Like, there's so many curves, like, you can't see, like, and so when you're trying to cross the road post office or whatever, it's just like, oh my gosh, somebody's going to come around here. So, like, the clouds
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And what we need to see is find out how much we can do ourselves and what is considered like DOT. Because some of these things, I know that we have to get permission, but some of them we can just do ourselves, so. But we need to investigate that.
Excellent. And am I missing any other groups to have a chance to debrief? I know we've got a lot of really great ideas. I saw Megan over there. Type them all down as I go, so we're taking good notes.
I was in the group with the DOT gentleman, and just wanted to say we talked about the Jake braking or the air brakes on the trucks, and whose responsibility or jurisdiction it falls under to like ban that. And the answer is we don't know. But the county commissioner was over there, and he knows about it now, so he's going to find out for us.
All right, guys, we're coming to the end of our agenda, and as we're wrapping up, I just want to make sure that there aren't any great ideas hidden. If you've been hesitant to speak up, now would be the time. feel free to interrupt me if so. However, just wanted to say thank you to everybody who took their time to come out here tonight and put their heads together as a community and really try to solve some of these challenges together. Really appreciate all of our guests from the DFP, as well as Parks and Rec, Andrew Sam, Bright Archer. Thank you so much for joining the panel. Elizabeth appreciated it as well, as well as Catherine. And going forward, we have a lot of great ideas. Our next meeting is going to be on June 15th, which I found out I might have to be out of town for work, but nonetheless, we'll target that date still. If the ideas and the work that you did tonight moved you and you want to take a more active leadership role in taking ownership of some of the actions and next steps, those will be distilled and talked about in the next meeting in terms of how do we move forward. We're going to do communications on this via email and Facebook, so it'll be very easy for you to get in touch, raise your hand if there's something that you're interested in taking part in. But other than that, we'll look to reconvene in roughly a month, June 15th. Stay tuned for the location. We'll figure it out. But we have most of your emails if you signed in and included it. If not, make sure you do so on your way out. But really just wanted to say thank you for your time, effort, energy, ideas, and your willingness to come together to make a solution for making Saxapahaw more safe and walkable.